And thank you very much indeed for your time. This results coming out at midnight tonight. Firstly, let's set the scene. How many students wrote or sat for the exam?
Yes, it's about 12,500 including part-time students.
Okay.
11,500 full-time and about 800 and some odd.
All right, so close to 13,000 compared to the 800,000 in the... Yeah, so it's vast. Just tell us your expectations.
Well, you know, from year to year, Umalusi helps us maintain a consistent standard across years so that universities know what to expect the following year. Somebody who passed in 2017 should be of the same caliber as somebody who passes in 2018. So we're expecting more or less the same sort of pass rate as we had last year, with probably a slight fluctuation.
Yeah. What about the raising and dropping of marks? I know there's been some talk, especially on social media, with regards to the maths paper. I think that was increased. Just talk to us about which papers were increased and decreased.
Well, in the IEB there were 46 papers that remained unchanged. There were 8 that were adjusted upwards and 8 that were adjusted downwards. I think it's important to say that standardization, the work that's done by the Assessment Standards Committee at Umalusi, is a professional activity conducted by professionals experienced in the examination field. So people like to say it's manipulation of marks. It isn't a manipulation of marks. These adjustments are in order to ensure that learners are treated fairly from one year to the next and across subjects, so that you don't have a year where you get an A for maths and next year, because the paper is too difficult or more difficult than it should have been, you don't get your A, you only get a B. It's not fair, because that's an accident of birth. And that's really what the standardization of results is about.
So leading from that, what do you make of the notion calling for a single exam?
Well, I mean, using the standardization results to call for a single exam is a non sequitur. I do know there are debates around having single examinations as examination boards. The world over, you have always got more than one exam board operating in a country because of the international nature of education. But this is a political question. Independent education is enshrined in the Constitution, and if one ever wants to question the right of independent education to exist, one has to go back to the Constitution and see what it says. It's a debate South Africa may wish to have at some point in the future.
Yeah. I mean, because once you approach tertiary institutions, you're relatively, generally, on equal playing field, isn't it?
Well, yes and no, except that different universities have different exams. So if you attend University of Pretoria and you do a BA, the course that you do and the exams that you write are comparable to what happens at Wits University or the University of Zululand in terms of structure of course, in terms of a structure of exams, but you don't write the same exam. So everybody within an institution, yes, it's even playing fields. But across institutions, it's not. And that's the nature of education. People are different. People look for different things. They look for different kinds of environments in which to learn. Yeah. And that's why they choose different tertiary institutions.
It's a tense time for matrics, you would agree. I mean, people are going through various emotions, wondering what the results are going to be. But if you look at it holistically, the matric results are a relatively small part of a child's character and skill, isn't it?
Absolutely. I'm always astounded by the fuss and bother that we have around the matric results, when in fact the matric results is only one step in the pathway of life. Yes, it's an important step, much like baptism or marriage or anything like that. But the matric results only assess a very tiny part of a child's skills, knowledge, understanding, empathy, character. And yet we place an enormous amount of pressure on children to succeed there. I'm not saying by any means don't do your best, and you must always do your best, you must always try your best. But children are growing, and sometimes the realization that getting a good matric result only happens later in life. That doesn't make the child a failure by any shot.
Definitely, yeah, 100%.
So one, I would be more comfortable if we were less obsessed with the matric results.
In terms of private school pass rates, what's the normal average of the years?
Well, they normally average between 98 and 99% pass rate. And the emphasis is probably more on entry to university, even though, in my opinion, the university is only one of many, many paths that a child can follow. So yes, generally the pass rates at independent schools, certainly within the IEB, have been good over the years. I don't think that's a feature of independent versus state education at all. The quality of education within a school is made up of three key things. The kind of child who goes to a school where they want to succeed, they want to be taught well, they want to know, they want to plan their future well. The parents who are prepared to sacrifice the latest fancy car in order to pay for the education for their child. And thirdly, the teachers. Who make the children and their well-being, not just their results, their well-being, the focus of their attention.
But, I mean, obviously socioeconomic elements come to play, isn't it? I mean, tell us about the difference between learning in a private school and a government school. I mean, somebody probably is screaming, Blaine, it's obvious. But is it that obvious?
No, it's not that obvious at all. If we look at the state system, there are excellent schools within the state system. Excellent schools that get excellent results, that produce excellent citizens of our country, who take our country forward. And some of them are in the rich areas of the North Johannesburg. Others are in rural KwaZulu-Natal. The quality of education essentially rests with the teacher. The teacher who is prepared to open the eyes of children, give them the confidence, give them the encouragement to do the very best they can, let them see beyond the world they're in. There is your success. It's that teacher who opens the door.
Okay.
So it's not entirely a socio-economic question. Some will argue that if you can pay the salaries for very good teachers, well, then you will get the best teachers. Having said that, there's some independent schools that are not the be-all and end-all of education.
So that's the model for a teacher. But so how do we get everybody on board? I mean, is teaching still a vocation?
Well, I'd like to think it is a vocation. Certainly in my day when I chose to be a teacher, it was, in a sense for me, something I felt I wanted to do because I thought that's the way I can make a difference in our country. And I'd like to think that many people who go into teaching still carry that belief, because certainly you don't go into teaching if you want to be a Warren Buffett or a billionaire of any sort. However, it's a profession that calls for your being, to bring children out, to bring them to the best that they can be. So I certainly think it is a vocation in that sense. The financial pressures that we have in our world, you know, as I was alluding to, the latest car and the fancy cell phone, whatever the case may be, sometimes deter people from going into teaching. But I'm always heartened when I see people who have been in a profession up until the age of 30, 40, 45, and then decide to go into teaching because they're looking for that fulfillment of giving back.
Let's look at, for those of us who don't know what a private school is all about, and maybe somebody that has kids in government school can now compare with my next question, is what sort of challenges do your learners go through in school?
Well, you know, it's an interesting thing. If you are looking at the broad spectrum of independent schooling, you've got those schools that are well-resourced, rich schools. And the children that go to those schools have to face the challenge that there's some things they have to do for themselves. Money doesn't buy everything. And those learners have got to realize that the world that they live in is a hell of a lot bigger than this very protected insular world. And I think by and large the schools have realized that and are challenging those learners to be real. As you go through the spectrum, you get learners or schools that cater for very poor communities. And the challenges they face are the ones that we traditionally found in the poorer state schools. They can't attract the best teachers because they don't have the money. The children are coming from homes where they might not necessarily have had a proper meal, and so on. So I think when we talk about South Africa, the diversity that we have goes across independent as well as state. But it's more emphasized in the state because obviously the state is addressing the past.
Finally, Anne, your advice to the learners that are anxiously waiting these results?
Well, my sense is that you've probably got a very good idea of whether you are making it or not making it. But the key thing to remember always is I'm the master of my own future. So if I pass well and I can go to university and that's the decision I've made, that's great. If I haven't passed as well, what is it that I want to do and what do I need to do in order to get onto that pathway? And if I haven't made it, well, my choice is either to leave school and try one of the entrepreneurial processes or to go back and say, next time I'm going to do better and do better. But the key thing is to retain your own resilience and the realization that you have control over your own life.
Salient, sage advice. Anne, thank you very much indeed for your time.
Pleasure.
All the best for the results coming out at midnight tonight. Anne Oberholzer is the CEO of IEB. Thank you very much.